All right, everybody, welcome back. We're doing a deep dive today on robotic process automation.
RPA.
RPA, exactly. And more specifically, how companies can actually make this whole RPA thing work on a larger scale.
Right.
So our guide for this journey is this white paper, aptly titled Scaling Robotic Process Automation.
Okay.
And it's by Varga Moid, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at UiPath.
Right.
So UiPath is a company that, I mean, they live and breathe this stuff, automation.
Yes.
So if you're interested in streamlining processes, maybe dipping your toes into digital transformation, or simply curious about robots taking over the workplace.
Sure.
Just kidding. Mostly.
Well.
Then this deep dive is for you.
We'll see.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head with that whole making it work part.
Okay.
You see a lot of companies get really excited about RPA. They test it out.
They see some early wins, and then they kind of hit a wall.
A robot-shaped wall, perhaps?
Maybe metaphorically.
Okay.
But the point is, scaling up RPA isn't as simple as just flipping a switch.
Right.
It's more like growing a plant.
Okay.
You need the right conditions, constant care, and sometimes you even have to prune back the dead leaves to let it flourish.
I like that analogy. So the white paper lays out 3 phases of this RPA journey.
Okay.
First up is what they call the appropriation phase.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
It's exactly what it sounds like. You're dipping your toes in the water.
Right.
Think of it as a company's first 3 to 6 months with RPA, usually within a single department.
Gotcha.
They're testing the technology, training a small team, and trying to achieve some quick wins.
So it's like a proof of concept.
Exactly.
Okay.
But the real challenge
is moving beyond these baby steps.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So let's talk about how companies can actually grow that metaphorical RPA plant.
Okay.
So the white paper outlines 6 key areas where organizations need to mature if they really want to scale RPA.
Right.
Think of these as the essential nutrients for your RPA garden.
Okay.
6 dimensions of RPA maturity.
Yes.
Okay, let's dig into the first one.
All right.
So it all starts at the top.
Okay.
Upper management buy-in.
Buy-in is so important.
And I don't just mean vaguely knowing about RPA. I mean truly understanding its potential and actively championing it.
It can't just be lip service.
So not just leaving it to the IT department to figure it out.
Exactly. We need that C-suite buy-in.
Okay.
We're talking about the CFO setting specific measurable goals for automation.
Right.
And the CIO integrating RPA into the overall IT architecture.
Okay.
Without that top-level commitment, any attempts at scaling RPA are likely to just wilt.
So it needs to be a strategic priority woven into the fabric of the company.
100%.
Okay, so now imagine you have your C-suite on board.
Okay.
Ready to invest. The next hurdle.
Talent.
Right, because someone needs to actually build and manage these robot workers.
Exactly. And it takes a village.
Okay.
You need business analysts who understand the processes, RPA developers who can code the automation solution architects, who can design the whole system. It's a mix of business and technical expertise, and finding all these skilled people can be a real challenge.
I can imagine. The paper actually highlights talent scarcity.
Yes.
As a major bottleneck for RPA scaling.
It's huge.
It seems like this is one of those easier said than done situations.
Absolutely.
So, and that's why building a strong internal training program is so crucial for long-term success.
All right, so let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
We've got management on board.
We've assembled our team of experts.
Right.
What's next?
Well, you need to figure out what to automate.
Right. How do companies go about choosing the right processes?
It's tempting to just go after those quick wins, the low-hanging fruit. But to really scale RPA, you need a more systematic approach to process discovery and prioritization. Think of it as mapping out your entire garden before you start planting.
So how do companies approach this mapping process?
Well, there are 2 main approaches. And ideally, companies should use a combination of both.
Gotcha.
The first is a top-down approach.
Okay. What does that look like?
It's very strategic and analytical. You have dedicated RPA analysts who use specific methodologies to assess which processes have the biggest potential for automation, weighing things like feasibility, complexity, and, of course, return on investment.
Makes sense. What about the other approach?
So the bottom-up approach is all about tapping into that collective knowledge of your workforce.
Right.
It's about empowering every employee to identify processes in their own work that could be automated.
So like a suggestion box for robots.
Exactly.
I love it.
And some RPA platforms like UiPath actually have built-in tools for this, things like Automation Hub and Task Capture. They make it easy for employees to submit their automation ideas, and it takes some of the burden off that central RPA team.
Like crowdsourcing for automation. I love that.
Right. And ultimately, the goal is to combine these top-down and bottom-up approaches to create these really detailed automation roadmaps outlining which processes will be automated and when.
So multi-year plan.
Think of it as a multi-year plan for your robotic garden.
Okay, so we've covered the first 3 dimensions. Leadership buy-in, talent, and process selection. But something tells me there's a big, expensive elephant in the room. That we haven't addressed yet.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
You're talking about funding, of course.
Funding, yes.
It's all well and good to have these ambitious automation plans, but someone has to pay for it.
Exactly.
So how do companies typically approach this?
So in the early stages, many companies take a very project-by-project approach. They'll look at the potential ROI of automating a specific process and decide whether or not it makes financial sense.
That seems pretty straightforward. What's the problem with that?
Well, it can be pretty short-sighted. To truly scale RPA, you need to shift your thinking from individual projects to a more holistic view of automation's impact on the entire department. And eventually the entire company.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Let's say you automate a single task in a department. And it saves an employee 10% of their time. That's great. But the real magic happens when you start automating all of their repetitive tasks. Now, you're not just talking about saving minutes. You're talking about freeing up hours, even entire days. And that's when you start to see what the white paper calls the portfolio effect.
Portfolio effect. I like the sound of that. What exactly does it mean?
So it's the idea that while automating individual tasks might yield small gains. Automating all or most of someone's tasks leads to a fundamental shift in how work gets done. Suddenly you can reimagine workflows, redistribute responsibilities, and achieve massive productivity gains across an entire department.
So it's about thinking bigger. Seeing the forest for the trees.
Exactly.
And as companies mature in their RPA journey, they often transition from this project-based funding to departmental business cases. They start to allocate specific budgets for automation, recognizing that the benefits extend far beyond just cost savings. And ultimately, the goal is to have a company-wide RPA budget spanning multiple years.
That's the sign of a truly mature RPA program.
So we've tackled leadership, talent, process selection, and even funding. That's 4 key dimensions of RPA maturity down. What are the last 2?
So they're all about how you approach and structure your RPA program. The first one is all about the philosophy behind your automation efforts. Most companies start with a centralized, specialist-driven approach. They have a dedicated team, often called a Center of Excellence, or COE, that handles everything from process identification to your development and implementation.
So it's like an internal team of RPA experts.
Exactly. And that works well in the early stages. But to truly scale RPA, you need to move beyond this centralized model and embrace the power of citizen developers.
This is the second time we've heard that term. What exactly is a citizen developer?
Think of them as tech-savvy business users who have the ability to automate their own tasks and simpler processes, even without being professional programmers.
So you're saying anyone can be an RPA developer?
In a sense, yes. You don't need to be a coding whiz.
I don't even know how to code.
Exactly. That's the beauty of it. Modern RPA platforms are designed to be very intuitive and user-friendly. Plus, companies like UiPath offer free online training and certification programs to help anyone become a citizen developer.
So it's about democratizing automation. giving everyone the tools to build their own robot helpers.
I like that.
Okay.
And there are huge benefits to this approach.
Yeah, what are they?
First, you unearth a lot more automation potential because you're not limited by the bandwidth of your central RPA team.
It's like tapping into a hidden workforce of robot builders.
Right. It's also more cost-effective.
Okay.
Because you're not paying for specialized developers for every single automation.
Makes sense.
And it empowers employees to be a part of the transformation, which can really help with change management.
Because no one likes to feel like their job is being taken over by robots.
Exactly. Citizen development gives people agency and makes them feel like they're shaping their own future.
I love that. Okay, so that's 5 down.
Okay.
Down to go.
Right.
What's the final dimension of RPA maturity?
It's all about the operating model.
Okay.
How do you structure and manage your RPA program as it grows and evolves?
This sounds like it could get complicated.
It definitely can.
So what are some of the key considerations?
Well, one big decision is whether to maintain a centralized RPA center of excellence or to adopt a more decentralized model.
Right.
Maybe you have multiple COEs across different business units, or perhaps you adopt a hybrid approach.
Okay.
It all depends on the size and complexity of your organization and how mature your RPA program is.
And what about the role of the COE itself?
That can evolve too.
Okay. How's it
in the early stages, the COE is often very hands-on,
right,
doing everything from training to development and implementation.
Okay.
But as the program matures and you have more citizen developers contributing,
right,
the COE can shift to a more strategic role.
So what would that look like?
They might focus more on setting standards, providing governance, managing the overall RPA portfolio,
right,
and fostering a culture of automation across the company.
So it's about finding that right balance between control and empowerment.
Absolutely.
It's like graduating from being a gardener to becoming a landscape architect.
I like that.
Okay. I think we've laid some excellent groundwork here.
Yeah.
We've explored all 6 dimensions
We have.
of RPA maturity.
Yes.
From getting that crucial leadership buy-in
Right.
to nurturing a culture of citizen development.
It's a journey.
But before we get ahead of ourselves and start planning our robot armies, I have a question.
Yeah.
What does the ideal preparation phase look like?
That's a great question.
Before a company really starts scaling RPA.
And that's exactly what we're going to dive into next.
Okay, stay tuned, folks.
Okay.
Things are about to get really interesting.
All right.
Okay, so we've laid out these 6 dimensions of RPA maturity.
Right.
The roadmap to scaling automation successfully.
Yeah.
But let's say a company's been diligently tending their RPA garden for about 12 to 18 months.
Right.
What should they have accomplished by this point?
So by that point,
to be truly ready to scale,
their RPA Center of Excellence, or COE, should be humming like a well-oiled machine.
Right.
We're not talking about a brand new team still figuring things out, but a seasoned group with experience from those early RPA implementations ready to tackle more ambitious projects.
So a mature COE is the first sign that a company's ready to scale.
Absolutely. But it's not just about having a COE. It's also about having a shining example of RPA success within the organization.
Right.
Ideally, at least one business unit should be fully committed to automation by this point.
So like a flagship department.
Exactly.
Showcasing the transformative power of RPA.
This department has gone beyond pilot projects and embraced automation as a core part of their operations.
Right.
They've proven the portfolio effect and can champion the benefits to other departments who might still be on the fence.
A compelling success story can go a long way.
For sure.
But there's more to it than just showing off. Right.
Right. By this stage, the company should also have experience tackling complex processes that span multiple departments.
Okay.
They've moved beyond automating simple tasks and ventured into the realm of interconnected workflows.
Yeah.
Those that often involve a lot of manual handoffs and potential for errors.
So they're flexing their automation muscles.
Exactly.
Proving they can handle the tougher challenges.
And this experience is invaluable for strengthening the COE's expertise.
Right.
It also forces different departments to collaborate, which can have these positive ripple effects beyond just the RPA implementation.
Now let's talk about those citizen developers again.
Okay.
The white paper emphasizes their importance for scaling RPA.
Yeah. They're crucial.
How many should a company aim to have by this 12 to 18-month mark?
It might sound ambitious.
Okay.
But the white paper suggests aiming for hundreds of trained RPA developers and analysts across the organization.
That seems like a lot.
Remember, we're talking about scaling RPA across the entire organization, not just within a single department.
Okay.
And to achieve that level of automation, you need a critical mass of people who understand the technology and can contribute even in a small way.
So it's not about turning everyone into a professional developer, but rather giving them the basic skills to automate their own tasks or suggest improvements.
And luckily, there are resources available to make this happen. Platforms like UiPath offer free online training and even certification programs that anyone can access.
So companies should actively encourage their employees to take advantage of these resources.
It's a win-win.
Okay, why is that?
Employees gain valuable skills and feel more empowered in their work. And the company gets a larger pool of people who can contribute to the RPA journey.
It's like building a grassroots movement for automation within the company. I like that.
So to recap, by the end of this preparation phase, you should have a mature COE, a champion department, showcasing the benefits of RPA, experience tackling complex processes, and a growing army of citizen developers all ready to contribute.
It sounds like a solid foundation.
It is.
For scaling RPA.
And it all starts with understanding those 6 dimensions of RPA maturity and taking a strategic, holistic approach to implementation.
Well, I'm eager to hear what comes next.
Okay.
Once a company has laid this solid foundation, what are the key considerations?
That's where things get really interesting.
For actually scaling RPA across the entire organization.
And we'll be exploring those considerations in detail next.
Okay, stay tuned. All right, so we've spent the last 2 segments building up to this moment. Actually scaling RPA across an entire organization.
The big leagues.
It's a bit like watching a sapling finally grow into a mighty oak.
I like that.
Where do we even begin?
It's a big step for sure. And while those 6 dimensions of RPA maturity we discussed are crucial throughout the entire journey, there are some specific considerations to keep in mind as you start to expand your automation program.
So what should companies be focusing on at this stage? Any common pitfalls to avoid?
One thing that often trips companies up is trying to do too much too quickly. Scaling RPA isn't about flipping a switch and automating everything overnight. It's a gradual process, and it's important to maintain a balance between ambition and pragmatism.
So it's about choosing your battles wisely.
Exactly. And that means having a very clear understanding of your automation goals and aligning them with your overall business strategy. What are the key challenges you're trying to solve with RPA? How will automation help you achieve your strategic objectives? These are important questions to answer before you start scaling.
It's like having a blueprint for your RPA expansion.
Exactly.
Making sure every automation project contributes to the bigger picture.
And as you start to scale, communication and collaboration become even more critical.
Why is that?
You need to ensure that everyone in the organization is on board with the RPA journey and understands the benefits and the potential impact on their roles.
Because change can be scary.
It can.
Especially when it involves robots.
Especially when it involves robots.
How can companies make sure everyone feels comfortable with this transition?
Transparency is key. Communicate openly and honestly about your automation plans. Involve employees in the process and address their concerns proactively. So remember those citizen developers we talked about? This is where their role becomes even more important.
Because they're not just building robots. They're acting as ambassadors for automation within their own teams.
They can help demystify RPA, share their experiences, and advocate for the benefits they've seen firsthand. This kind of grassroots enthusiasm can be incredibly powerful in overcoming resistance to change.
It makes sense. People are more likely to embrace change when it's coming from their peers, not just from management.
Absolutely. And as you scale your RPA program, you'll need to continually reassess your operating model and governance framework. what worked in the early stages might not be sufficient for managing hundreds of automations across multiple departments.
So it's about evolving your approach as you go.
Exactly. You might need to adjust your COE structure, refine your process prioritization criteria, or implement more robust monitoring and reporting mechanisms. It's a constant process of learning and adapting.
This all sounds incredibly complex.
It can be.
Is there any way to simplify the process of scaling RPA?
The white paper we've been discussing certainly provides a great framework for thinking about RPA maturity and the key considerations for scaling. But beyond that, choosing the right technology platform can make a huge difference.
Now, I know the author of this white paper worked for UiPath. So there's bound to be some bias there.
Of course.
But is UiPath really the best option?
I wouldn't necessarily say best, as the ideal platform will depend on each company's specific needs and circumstances. But UiPath is certainly a leader in the RPA space, and their platform offers a lot of features that can facilitate scaling, like the citizen developer tools we discussed earlier, robust governance features, and a strong ecosystem of partners and resources.
So it's not just about the software itself, but the whole ecosystem that surrounds it.
Absolutely. And that's something to keep in mind when you're evaluating different RPA vendors. Do they offer comprehensive training and support? Do they have a proven track record of helping companies scale successfully? These are important factors to consider.
This has been an incredibly insightful journey.
It has.
And I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the complexities and the possibilities of RPA.
It's a fascinating field.
But before we wrap up, I'd love to hear your final thoughts on this topic.
Sure. What's the one key takeaway? I think the most important thing to remember is that scaling RPA is a marathon, not a sprint. It's an ongoing process that requires a strategic mindset, a commitment to continuous improvement, and a willingness to adapt as you go. So don't be afraid to experiment, learn from your mistakes, and celebrate your successes along the way. RPA has the potential to transform organizations, but it's up to each company to lay the groundwork and nurture that transformation over time.
Beautifully said. And for those who want to dive even deeper into this topic, I highly recommend checking out the white paper we've been discussing today.
Definitely.
Scaling Robotic Process Automation by Varga Moid.
A great resource.
It's a valuable roadmap for anyone embarking on this exciting RPA journey.
It certainly is. And as always, the world of automation is constantly evolving. So stay curious, keep learning, and embrace the possibilities.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
And be sure to tune in next time. For another fascinating exploration of cutting-edge technologies and ideas.
I look forward to it.
Until then, keep automating.